Carmella has, once again, made feminist history as one of the first female cereal mascots. Certainly the first one from a major company, General Mills, though the first overall was Dash, a rabbit character from an obscure cereal called Off Limits, which also added the second female cereal mascot a few months later, a woman named Spark, and that was only in 2020. For the majority of American cereal culture, there have been 0 female characters. The Big Bang Theory even had a joke about it in a 2013 episode.
Tony the Tiger, Diggum the Frog, Cap'n Crunch, Toucan Sam, Frankenberry, Boo Berry, Sugar Bear, and the Honey Nut Cheerio Bee, I believe his name is Buzz. Count Chocula, Trix the Rabbit, Snap, Crackle, and Pop. Not one cereal mascot is a girl. It's a total breakfast sausage fest.
10 years later, in 2023, Carmella, the first lesbian vampire, is the first major female cereal mascot. Well, sort of. In 1971, General Mills introduced the seasonal Halloween Monster Cereals line, featuring affectionate parodies of classic monsters Count Dracula and Frankenstein's monster, respectively called Count Chocula for chocolate cereal and Frankenberry for strawberry cereal. The cereals consist mainly of pieces shaped like little skulls that are colored and flavored to their respective theme, as well as pastel-colored marshmallow pieces that may or may not come in specific shapes. Frankenberry stands out as a sort of male cereal mascot who's almost in drag. General Mills' desire to represent strawberry-flavored cereal with the color pink clashed with their reluctance to have a female cereal mascot, resulting in an accidental gender non-conforming Frankenberry. Aside from his pink color, he also appears to have nail polish, thanks to strawberry-shaped nail images on his fingers. Though it's somewhat of feminist value for representing an alternative way to perform masculinity, it also represents just how badly General Mills wanted to keep their mascots a boys' club. Robot Chicken has a rather homophobic skit about how gay the character is perceived to be.
He broke up with me!
By far the most interesting trivia I found out when doing research for this video is that originally, Frankenberry turned kids' poop the color pink. Doctors soon figured out what the problem was and alerted the press to keep parents from panicking. Honestly, General Mills should have made that a selling point. Of course, the FDA ended up banning the food coloring that they were using, out of fear that pink poop would hide signs of internal bleeding. A reasonable concern. They switched to a digestible pink pigment. The following year, 1972, General Mills added Boo Berry for blueberry cereal, a generic ghost representing a traditionally masculine alternative to the berry options. In 1974, they added Fruit Brute for lime cereal, a generic werewolf, and in 1987, Yummy Mummy for orange cereal.
I don't want to lose you. You're my yummy mummy.
Both of which were discontinued, relaunched in the 2000s, and discontinued again. In 1997, they considered making another character for a proposed mixed berry cereal and had 4 designs sketched out that included 2 female proposals, Bride of Frankenberry and Berry Patra, a riff on Cleopatra. If either had been selected, it would have been the first female cereal mascot, but the whole idea of a mixed berry cereal was ultimately scrapped. In 2021, they did a Monster Mash limited edition box with all of the characters on the box and various shaped marshmallow pieces paying homage to their monster themes. Now in 2023, they've come out with Carmella Creeper, caramel apple flavored cereal, and a Monster Mash remix box, with Carmella Creeper joining the cast, both featuring the classic figure of Carmilla. Well, sort of. This time, she's not a vampire. She's a zombie, and a goth girl, and a DJ, and possibly black, though I'll get to that later. She's not exactly the vampire lover's image of Carmilla, though she somewhat resembles Carmilla in the web series, and at least one of the takes on her in the Apex Society webcomic. Her facial features appear to be based on Vampira, with the sprightly look of a Keebler elf. She's described as Frankenberry's long-lost cousin, though I don't see why she needs to have been lost. She could have just been traveling? In the comic on the back of the box, Count Chocula, Frankenberry, and Booberry are playing video games at Count Chocula's place when they hear a mysterious thumping that they mistake for a ghost and freak out.
What is that mysterious ticking noise?
The Monster Serial's characters are famously cowards, as a way to make them child-friendly and not very scary themselves. However, it turns out that it's just Carmella playing loud music.
I'm afraid you're just too darn loud.
And they all relax and welcome her. Espiel introduces her as a fun-loving zombie. It's a nice way to ingratiate the character into the main group. I'm guessing she was originally pitched as Chocula's daughter, riffing on both the 1936 film Dracula's Daughter and the teenage vampire character Draculora in Monster High, to appeal to girls with a fun girl character they could relate to. They probably decided to drop the explicit connection to Dracula and substitute in a popular female vampire name, going with Carmilla. The name Carmilla shares etymological roots with caramel, both alluding to the blissful Garden of Eden, so that provides an easy food pun. And then someone probably said, hey, we've already got our vampire representation covered with Count Chocula, and if the two characters are no longer related, we might as well make her represent a different monster. So they made her a zombie and connected her with Frankenberry as a similar walking corpse figure. That's just speculation, but it would explain how the character turned out that way. A Carmilla version designed by committee. There's also no sign that she's a lesbian. It's interesting that she's connected to Frankenberry, who many people read as gay, but I don't know if that's intentional. Personally, I'm headcanoning that she's dating Spark, who I think is supposed to be a lesbian. According to a Forbes article, Off Limits wanted to push boundaries with female serial mascots, mascots of color, and mascots with marginalized sexual orientations. Your move, General Mills. Hashtag give Carmella a girlfriend. I mean, I guess Carmella could be shipped with Dash, but you know, she's a bunny rabbit. Seems inappropriate. To promote their Monster Mash remix serial, they released a remix of the 1962 song Monster Mash, done in a more modern pop music style, and encouraged people to make TikTok videos of them dancing to it. The song is fine. It's nothing to write home about, but it should be entertaining to kids, who probably aren't as thrilled with the old-timey aesthetics of the original song. What's interesting about it is that it gives a voice to Carmella, who can be heard repeating the line, This gives the song a youthful, feminine narration, in contrast to the original, where Boris Pickett frames it with an older, masculine Bela Lugosi impression. While Pickett frames Dracula as a stodgy old man, upset that the Transylvania twist, a riff on the twist, a dance style from 1959, has gone out of style in favor of the Monster Mash, a riff on the mashed potato, a dance style from 1962, Carmella has her finger on the pulse of the latest trends, and embraces the remix as something she and the Monster Serial's customers should be into in 2023. So what ethnicity is Carmella supposed to be? The obvious answer is white, because she's relatively pale, has straight hair, isn't particularly curvy like Spark, is supposed to be Frankenberry's cousin, and is at least loosely based on the white vampire character. But I think there's an element of ambiguity attached. There are various elements of black coding, from the DJ profession, to her larger lip size, to the use of ebonics in the comic. The narration says that the classic characters are chillin'. She greets Frankenberry by calling him cuz, where he says cousin, and he describes her as rockin' the joint. None of the main characters talk like that before she shows up. Her skin is green, reflecting her serial branding, but it also ambiguously conceals her actual ethnicity, in contrast to Count Chocula, who's clearly a white guy who wears brown and is slightly brown tinted. The green color isn't that different from the blue Gross sisters in the Proud family. I think, in addition to being the first major female mascot, Carmella might be the first major mascot of color, perhaps based on Spark, where previously we just had brown-colored animals, like Sugar Bear from Golden Crisp, and the controversial Coco the Monkey from Cocoa Krispies, who has sometimes been read as offensively black-coded. That said, General Mills is not owning Carmella being black, or even biracial, the way that they're owning her being the first female Monster Serial's mascot. If she is supposed to be a character of color, they're keeping it ambiguous. If she is black, it's an interesting adaptational fate for the Carmella character. The original novella has some elements of racism, with the possible servant character Mascot, and Carmella herself is at least a classist bigot. In the context of fitting within the social hierarchy of 1800s Austria, we can infer that she would be a racist character. The Carmella web series is the first real subversion of that, with Carmella loving Mascot as her black adoptive sister, who also might be coded as an ex-girlfriend. Carmella herself has almost universally been adapted as white. Depending on your definition of race, the Latina Alucarda may or may not qualify, though that's an edge case based on cultural distinctions. Prior to the ambiguous Carmella Creeper, I think the only black version of Carmella is the result of an accidental black vampire book cover as part of an Amazon publishing scheme, where random pieces of vampire art are ripped off to sell Carmella as a public domain work in the hopes of attracting buyers, where a single book cover they have the rights to might not be as effective. Unfortunately, unless you know who holds the rights, it's hard to report these. As a result, there might be someone out there who pictures Carmella as black, though the text of the work doesn't support it. The 1991 black lesbian vampire book, The Gilda Stories, by Joel Gomez, is sometimes called a twist on the Carmella story, but she likely only took very loose inspiration. I would not call Gilda a Carmella figure. The Carmella character is so grounded in whiteness that it's surprising to see a character based on her end up as at least ambiguously black. It's loosely progressive in that it erodes her more racist origin and represents the transition toward appealing to the modern generation. Carmella Creeper is cool, she's trendy, seems to be younger than the other monsters, and her racial coding reflects that whiteness is less popular than it was in the 70s, or at least that it's perceived that way.
Black is in fashion.
And this is probably to appeal to a broader audience. Unfortunately, there's not much more to go on. I gave the Carmella Creeper serial a shot. It's pretty good. I could definitely see kids enjoying it regardless of gender. The caramel apple taste is pretty distinct. Considering the weird disappointment of Apple Jacks not tasting like apple, despite their branding that kids just like it, regardless of the confusing name.
Call me stupid, but if they named it Applejack, shouldn't it taste like, well, apple?
Stupid. That isn't why it tastes so good.
Well then, know-it-alls. Why? They just do.
Yeah.
I could see kids being attracted to a cereal that actually does taste like apple. There's an apple variant of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, but the cinnamon flavor overwhelms the apple in a way that Carmella Creeper doesn't. I think it's closer to the Mexican soft drink Manzanita Sol, meaning Little Apple Sun, which I think tastes like apple-flavored Pepsi. If you like sugary apple products, Manzanita Sol is superior, but hard to find in the US, and Carmella Creeper is a decent substitute for it. Let's be real, it's a normal cereal. Some of us might want it to be outstanding to show how great it is to have female representation, but that's just what should be normal. There are plenty of so-so cereals with male representation that no one ever singles out, but if Carmella Creeper doesn't sell well, everyone will focus on the female mascot. So, I hope it does sell well. Carmella is a feminist trendsetter, but it's a shame one is needed at all. Now to seal the box.